Welcome to the deep dive. So our mission today is to unpack this wave of cyber attacks on these elite U.S. universities. We want to understand the frightening and sophisticated methods they used and figure out why the education sector is suddenly the #1 battlefield for organized cybercrime.
What's really striking right off the bat is the pattern. This isn't just some random hacker.
Right.
We are looking at, a truly unprecedented digital security crisis hitting 3 major Ivy League schools, Princeton, Harvard, and Penn. And the fascinating thing, the real paradox here, is that you have these institutions with, billion-dollar endowments, world-class everything, and they weren't brought down by some revolutionary piece of tech. They were taken down by a confidence trick. It was a failure of process, a failure of trust, not really a failure of the firewalls.
That paradox is the perfect place to start. How do institutions built on intellectual rigor fall for something so fundamentally human?
Right.
Okay, let's get into the timeline, because the coordination here is very suggestive. The sources show the first hits came really close together. It starts with the University of Pennsylvania and Harvard. Both of them got hit with these very similar, very sophisticated breaches back on October 2nd, 2025.
And it seems like that initial success, it gave them the confidence to go for the third one.
Yeah.
Because just a month later, November 1st, Princeton's entire alumni, donor, and student database was compromised.
That's a staggering trifecta.
Yeah.
And the sources are clear that even now, the intruders' identities, their motives, it's all still unknown. The feds are still investigating.
Correct. We don't know who did it.
Yeah.
But we know exactly how they did it.
And that's the key.
The key common thread in all 3 attacks was the use of sophisticated social engineering impersonation tactics. That is the smoking gun. It confirms this was a coordinated campaign.
And when we say social engineering, let's be clear. It means they didn't have to break in.
They were invited in.
They were invited in. They hacked the people, not the code.
Exactly. It's the weakest link. If you want to get past all the state-of-the-art security, you just target human psychology. The attackers impersonated legitimate university employees.
Like who? IT staff?
Sometimes, yeah. Or high-level administrators. They'd use stolen credentials or just a very deep familiarity with how the university worked. Because they looked like trusted insiders, they just walked right past all the security protocols.
Yeah.
They didn't need a zero-day exploit. They just needed a headset and an internal staff directory.
So once they were inside, they weren't just wandering around. They went straight for let's call them the institutional crown jewels.
Yeah.
What were those primary targets?
Right. They ignored the day-to-day stuff. They went for the high-value information reservoir. So we're talking about the private alumni networks, the comprehensive donor databases, and all the confidential student information.
Decades of data.
Decades of sensitive data all in one place.
And the sources give us a really terrifying example from the Harvard breach specifically. What exactly got out that makes this so high stakes?
Well, the data was just shockingly personal. It included personal emails, home addresses, and this is the crucial part, comprehensive past donation details.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Think about that. If you know exactly how much a wealthy person donated, when they did it, what they care about, that's a gold mine.
For what? Future scams?
For future very convincing financial fraud or even extortion attempts against that donor, it goes way beyond just the university.
And this is where that word sophisticated really earns its keep. The attackers had advanced knowledge. They didn't just guess an email address to spoof. They understood the internal systems, the employee hierarchies.
It points to extensive reconnaissance beforehand, weeks, maybe months, of just mapping out the internal structure.
So they knew who to pretend to be.
They knew exactly who to pretend to be. A specific department head, a system admin, and they knew the right language to use to get the person on the other end of the line to grant them access. It was about manipulating trust.
Which brings up the big question. Why these places?
Yeah.
Why are elite universities such magnets for this kind of attack? It's clearly not just for bragging rights.
No, it's the perfect storm of money, power, and knowledge. These institutions are a triple threat that criminals and, even nation states just can't ignore.
Okay, so break that down for us.
Well, first, they're massive, rich data repositories. We're talking personal information, financial records, and this is huge, valuable proprietary research data, intellectual property.
So medical breakthroughs, new tech.
Exactly. That kind of research IP is worth billions on the global market, especially to competitors. So that's one. Secondly, you have the high-profile donor networks.
Right, which we just talked about.
That data creates these incredibly lucrative targets for identity theft, for fraud, all using the university's good name as bait.
And then there's the ideological angle.
That's the third factor, political and ideological motivation. These prestigious universities are, they're global symbols of establishment power. That makes them very attractive targets for hacktivist groups or anyone trying to cause ideological disruption. The attack gets maximum visibility.
So let's shift from the technical side to the human cost. What did this actually mean for the faculty, the students, the donors? Because the consequences here were immediate. The first one was just operational paralysis. The sources say faculty and staff lost access to email, to research tools for weeks.
Yeah, multiple weeks. Imagine you're a professor with a huge grant deadline, and suddenly you can't get to your research data, you can't communicate. It doesn't just halt research, it can damage careers. The cost of that downtime is it's enormous. And then beyond that, you have the severe privacy violations, the risk of identity theft, of financial fraud. That's a long-term problem for the thousands of people who trusted the university with their data.
But the deepest damage, maybe the existential threat, is to the institutional trust itself.
Absolutely. When donor information gets stolen, it's not just about exposing individuals. It threatens future fundraising.
Of course.
If wealthy alumni lose confidence that you can protect their data, they're just going to stop giving. And that undermines the entire mission of the university, which depends on that funding. The consequences just cascade.
And this isn't just about 3 schools. When we zoom out, the sources confirm the entire education sector has become a primary battlefield.
Ay.
The stats they're staggering. Education is now the #1 most targeted sector for organized cybercrime worldwide. That's a massive shift. What's driving that?
It's the intersection of high reward and, frankly, low-hanging fruit. The numbers are terrifying. There was a 23% jump in ransomware attacks on educational institutions in just the first half of 2025.
23%.
That growth rate is unsustainable. Universities just don't have the budgets or the kind of centralized IT control to handle that kind of assault.
The sources put a number on it per week. The average was 4,388 cyberattacks per week globally in the second quarter of 2025.
Almost 4,400 attempts every week. It's relentless pressure. And it exploits a few common weaknesses you find in academia. We already talked about phishing and social engineering.
Right, the human factor. But what about the tech side? What are the structural problems?
Well, a big one is legacy infrastructure. These universities are old, their digital footprint is sprawling and messy. You've got outdated systems right next to modern ones, complex networks. It creates countless entry points for attackers.
You can't lock down every old server in every basement.
Exactly. And third, you have advanced persistent threats, or APTs. We're talking about nation-state actors, or these highly organized, very well-funded criminal groups. They are patient, they are relentless, and they are specifically targeting that valuable research data.
So that brings us to the critical question. Why do universities struggle so much to defend themselves? They have brilliant people, they have resources.
It really boils down to their unique environment. Experts point to what they call the complex user environment. A university is not a corporation. It's more like trying to secure a small, constantly changing city.
That's a great analogy.
I mean, think about it. You've got tens of thousands of students coming and going, visiting faculty, staff, this huge alumni network. All of them need to access the network. That diversity and sort of transient nature makes a single comprehensive security strategy almost impossible. And AI-assisted attacks are just making it worse. Attackers are using AI to generate hyper-realistic phishing emails and scams, and they're doing it faster than these universities can adapt.
So the sources are saying prevention alone just isn't enough anymore. A breach is almost inevitable.
Exactly. The focus has to shift to resilience. It's no longer, can we stop them from getting in? It's how fast can we detect them, kick them out, and get our systems back online?
With that in mind, let's look at the urgent call to action. What are the specific steps universities have to take right now?
First and foremost, strengthen the human capital. That means investing in dedicated cybersecurity staff, not just relying on the general IT team, and crucially, mandating multi-factor authentication for everyone.
Everyone, no exception.
From the president down to the first-year student, and you have to have regular mandatory security training that people actually pay attention to.
Okay, what's second?
Continuous testing and monitoring, not just a checkup once a year. They need ongoing vulnerability assessments, penetration testing. Basically, they need to attack themselves to find the weaknesses.
And have a plan for when it happens.
A clear, robust incident response plan that's been drilled and tested before the crisis hits. And finally, external collaboration. They cannot do this alone. They need to be working with the FBI, with cybersecurity firms, with information sharing groups. It has to be treated like a sector-wide war, because at the end of the day, these attacks threaten individual privacy, they threaten critical research, and they threaten reputations built over centuries. It's an existential threat to our whole knowledge infrastructure.
The message is clear. The time for deliberation is over. Immediate, unified action is imperative because protecting education is really about protecting society's foundation for progress.
And I think one of the sources just sums it up perfectly. It reframes the whole issue. It says, the security of our educational institutions is not merely an IT concern. It is fundamental to preserving academic freedom, protecting individual privacy, and ensuring the continued advancement of human knowledge in an increasingly digital age.
That really brings it all home. So here's something for you to think about. Given that these attackers clearly had advanced internal knowledge, and you have this huge, constantly changing, complex user environment, you have to wonder, can these institutions ever be truly secure? What's the realistic balance they have to strike between that open, collaborative environment that research demands and the kind of security lockdown they need to protect their most vital data? We'll leave you with that to mull over until our next deep dive.